Welcome from a cloudy day in Fife, but hopefully I'm going to bring some sunshine with some recipes, celebrating food sovereignty. My name is Wendy Barrie and I'm going to do 3 simple dishes for you today, and I think the only 2 things on the whole table that are not from Scotland are the sugar and the cinnamon. So you don't all have to be quite that extreme, but you know, it's fun. It's amazing how much you can use the local food in Scotland. So we're going to start with an apple cake, and we've got some apples from the garden. Now they're quite small, so all the recipes will be on my website, Scottish Food Guide, and you have to make a judgment. If you've got big Bramleys, then you're only going to need a couple, whereas if you've got little baby ones, you're going to need a few more apples. But these are from our James Grieve tree, and in Scotland there's a huge number of apple varieties, and you can actually start harvesting from now right through storing some of them and still be eating them in March. So there really isn't any excuse not to enjoy Scottish apples, and indeed Scottish pears, Scottish plums. We have a real heritage in Scotland of fruit trees, so we should celebrate them and enjoy them. Now the James Grieve was one that was created in Edinburgh, so it's not so far away, and it's quite a tart apple, and it's absolutely delicious for this cake and for lots of other things. We also make an apple butter, and it is fantastic with your yoghurt. It's very, very condensed apple puree with a little bit of added sugar, but very little, and it really is delicious. So I'm just taking out the cores here of all of these. It won't take me long, and just one cut with a knife and the whole job is done. Now these can go into your food waste. We have a compost here, so all these bits and pieces go into the food waste. But actually we also have rather a lot of bunnies in the garden, wild bunnies, and they're so cute, the baby bunnies. So we actually put out the apple cores for the bunnies in this house. Sometimes visitors come and they see them and they're not bothered, and they say, "Oh, I think your bunnies escaped," but it actually was a wild one in the first place. Now I haven't got a food waste bin ready, so I'll just pop that on a napkin here. Right, now in the bowl I have got an easy one mix sponge. So 100 grams of plain flour, 100 grams of butter softened, 100 grams of sugar, and I like using a nice soft brown sugar. I think the brown sugars give it a lovely flavour and a nice rich colour as well. So unless I really want bleached white meringues, I tend to use brown sugar for everything. It also has a teaspoon of baking powder, and whip it all up together with a little bit of cinnamon. That's our imported ingredient there. And what we're going to do is we're going to add the apples. So almost all the apples. So I'm just going to quickly slice them in. This is based on a Swedish recipe, and when you're on the continent, a lot of the cake recipes are not as oversweet as sometimes our Scottish recipes are, and you could almost argue you're getting some of your 5 a day in this cake, because it's really juicy and it makes a lovely tea time cake or a lovely dessert. Cut it neatly, dredge it with icing sugar, and serve it with whipped cream, and you've suddenly got a dessert, not just a snack. So try adding more fruit to your sponges, it's really delicious. This is also lovely with some brambles, which are coming into the bramble season, or earlier in the year you could use some raspberries. So you can mix your fruit, and it's absolutely lovely. So I'm going to pop that in the bowl. Fold in the apples, and I've got a lined sandwich tin here with a bit of baking parchment, a little bit of butter, and it's ready to go. Now that's just an old-fashioned tin, but you can do a bigger recipe than this and do it in a tray bake if you'd rather, whatever shape suits you. So just fold in those apples so you get a lovely juicy mix. Now if your mixture is not a nice dropping consistency like that, just add a spoonful of water or milk, or even a little bit of juice if you have some apple juice from breakfast time or something, and just slacken it a little bit. That was fine, it didn't need it. And then smooth it out a little bit, like so. And you can multiply up this recipe, of course. Don't want to waste any. you go. And you're getting the colour from the brown sugar and also from the cinnamon. And lastly, take the last apple that's been kept here and slice it up. You'll notice I'm not one for removing skins. A little bit of fibre is always good for you, and it never spoils the cake as far as I'm concerned. And just pop it round the edge. And as the cake rises, you'll get a lovely, lovely finish on the cake, and you can dredge it with icing sugar too if you wish. And this will take about 15 to 20 minutes in an oven. Bring it out when it's well risen and set for, as I say, a delicious dessert or a tea time treat. And we have one apple cake ready to go. Local butter, of course, local eggs from just up the road, and you can get Scottish flour. You can get wholemeal flour just around the corner up at Scotland the Bread near Ely, but you can also get white flours milled in Scotland as well. So that's going into our log stove here for 15 to 20 minutes. Now, next up, I thought I would do a quick little pastry dish with you. I've already made the pastry, so I have cheated a little bit, but nevertheless, I am a fan of pastry because, you know, nobody is suggesting for one moment you shouldn't enjoy rice and enjoy pasta, but you know, we have got lovely pastry recipes, potato recipes using our roots more, so much more you can do. And so I do like making rough puff pastry. The recipe is on the website. Once you get the hang of the rolling and folding, it's a great way to serve food. You can make pies and bridies, and it really is so versatile. And you can also make little snacks. So this is a little savoury snack, little pesto swirls that I'm going to make now. So this has been kept chilled in the fridge, and you can see little bits of the butter there. It's a wholemeal flour from Scotland the Bread that I've used here, and a little bit of flour just to... This is the paper is really just so I don't get in a terrible mess here. And the pastry is chilled. Always work with chilled pastry. And I'm going to roll it out into an oblong. This is so easy, and you can get the kids doing this. And if you really don't fancy the idea of making your own rough puff pastry, you can buy ready-made puff pastry, so it's not the end of the world. But you can see the bits of butter, and that will melt out in a nice hot oven and create these lovely flaky layers, which is what you're looking for. So I use this recipe to make pies. They can be vegetarian pies, are rather beautiful, as well as meat pies. And just roll it out a little bit more there, like so. So what am I going to do with this? Well, I have got a very easy idea. I wanted to introduce Scottish cheese to remind you the next time you're reaching for a brie or a gouda that we have amazing Scottish versions right here in our country. Beautiful cheeses. So you don't need to necessarily venture to the continent for good cheese. We have got great cheeses. And indeed, I'm a little bit biased because I publish Scottish Cheese Trail, so you can look there and find these cheeses. And this one is Jane's from the St Andrews Farmhouse Cheese Company. And her mature farmhouse is lovely. And that's what we're going to use in this recipe. So I've got here some of her cheese, and I've also got homemade pesto, again, local. So out in spring, you can gather, they're everywhere, just Google it so you know you're picking the right thing. And the ransoms, the wild garlic leaves, make terrific pesto. And then you can either put it in a jar and store it in a sterile jar, or you can freeze it. I tend to freeze it in little cups so I can pull out some whenever I want it. So a classic pesto would be basil and parmesan and olive oil. Not in this house it isn't. In this house it's the wild ramsons. It's, in this case, Supernature rapeseed oil. We've got some lovely Scottish rapeseed oils, and I've used Jane's farmhouse cheese. Another really powerful farmhouse one is the Isle of Mull that I often use. You also need nuts. The traditional recipe has pine nuts. I have whatever I like and whatever I have in the house. On this occasion, a dear friend had given me a gift of macadamia, so I do have item 3 that was not local. But you can gather ye hazelnuts if you really want to stick with the local completely. So here we have it, lovely, lovely pesto. So I'm going to just pop it out onto my possibly wasn't the best little dish to use, gorgeous as it is, because the pesto is getting stuck in the corners. But we'll get it all out. It's got a wonderful, wonderful garlicky smell and indeed garlicky colour. I'm just going to go round the edges of this lip and get the rest of it out. Here we are. There we are. So, now all we do now is spread it all over your pastry, puff pastry, homemade or bought puff pastry, like so. Lovely vivid green. It keeps its colour. Now this has been in the freezer and you can see it's kept its colour, its flavour. I'm getting bowled over by the smell of garlic. It's lovely. And then some of Jane's cheese, scattered right up to the corners, like so. Back in there. And then it can actually be quite handy having the paper because it can help you to start the rolling. You don't really need it, but it does have its uses. There we are, and on we go. And then all you do is you cut them into pinwheels. First one will be a bit wonky, but that's the one you get to eat when it's cooked. And these will spread out, so give them a little bit of space in between them. And they take about 10 minutes in the oven. So we won't put them in quite yet because the cake's in the oven. They won't come to any harm. But they are absolutely delicious for a little snack, a picnic, in front of the movies, on Netflix, whatever you like. A nice, healthy, delicious, non-additive, palm-free snack for children as well. You can make it without nuts if there's somebody in the house that isn't too keen on them or allergic to them, so always watch out for that, of course. But there they are, ready to go. And on a baking tray and into the oven these will go. Really tasty, I recommend them. You can also freeze them when they're cooked and warm them before you serve them because the cheese just melts a little bit, which is rather delicious. Now, last but not least, I've got another recipe which I think you will really enjoy. And these are stuffed cabbage leaves. You may know them as dolmas. And they're really delicious. And another one I thought I would do, because it's so versatile, you can really make it your own with the different ingredients that you add. And that's why I thought I would pick it today. So what I've got today is beef. And I've slow cooked the beef. It was shin. Now use your local butcher. Whatever you do, use your local butcher. And get some lovely cuts. It can be beef, lamb, pork, or you could do one with seasonal vegetables. In this case, I've used shin from Hardy's Mill. And I have browned it with a little bit of the rapeseed oil. And then I have added some of our own leek from the garden, so you can use a nice local vegetable. And then I've got some pearl barley. So for this particular recipe, you don't have to boil potatoes as well. Everything's in the one pan, although you can serve it with potatoes if you want to. So that's what we've got in here, and it's cooled down now. A little bit of my own marjoram, the recipe's on the website, cooled down, filling, ready for my dolmas. Now we've got some fantastic local cabbage here. Again, straight from our garden. This happens to be Shetland cabbage, but you can use any cabbage that's got lovely big leaves. And these are beautiful, with beautiful cabbage and really delicious as well. So what you do is you take out that vein. And our bunnies eat that as well. And then once you've taken out the vein, you pop them in a wok, pour over some boiling water. So a big pan will do, any big pan will do. And just blanch them for a couple of minutes, and then they will be nice and limp. Refresh them in cold water, in a colander, and they're ready to go. And in actual fact, at that point, you can freeze these for another day. They freeze beautifully. So it's a great way of using lots of outer leaves from cabbages, no waste and delicious, and they look beautiful as well. So that's our cabbage. This particular one is called Shetland Kale. And what we're going to do then is these are two that I have already blanched, so you'll see they're nice and floppy. and they've got the hard bit out of them. So what I do is I just fold that over a little bit, just so that you don't get the gap, and then put a little bit of the mix in there. The trick is not to overfill them. Just enjoy a little mix in there. There you go. And I like the pearl barley. A lot of dolma's recipes would have rice, and the pearl barley is Scottish and is delicious, nutritious, and works beautifully. So what we do is we fold them up like so, little parcel, roll them up, and then stick a wooden skewer through them like so. And I'll do another one just to show you. Don't worry if it's ripped up a little bit. Just fold it over like so. Add your beef. Now everything is fully cooked. So what you're doing is cooking the cabbage leaf fully. It's only blanched. And reheating your meat, because your meat is all cooked. So don't do half cooked meat in this. And turn it up like that. And if you use a lovely Scottish beef lamb, you don't need to add a lot of seasoning, but if you like your food curried, then add more spices or some lovely chilli. We have chilies in Scotland, growing in Scotland, so that you can do that as well. See, they're really pretty and nice, and you can do them in advance, and they're delicious and nutritious, and they're Scottish. So that is an example of the dolmas. So we have our 3 dishes. Now we're going to do a little bit more with the dolmas here. Just give them a wee. So one thing in Scotland is we can have, like any other country, we can have gluts of food. And you've got to think, well, what are we going to do with things when you've got a glut of food? So don't be afraid to use it and enjoy it. So black currant jam. Get your black currants when they're ripe and then enjoy them in the darkest winter in a lovely jam. I've got some chutney here that we used with our own rhubarb and some apple. And I think that this would be beautiful with our dolmas. We like that with our dolmas. Around this time of year, you end up with tons of chives and you don't know what to do with them. So make them into a chive butter. This has been frozen from last year and you can use it like fresh straight into a dish. So by using things and thinking ahead a little bit, you can stretch the season for some of our wonderful vegetables. We've got Scottish beer. This is Ovenston's. We've got Scottish salt. We've got from Skye and from Blackthorn over at Ayrshire. We make our own herbs. You can grow lovely herbs in the garden and do your own mixed herbs. And these lovely specimens here are pink fir potatoes straight from the garden. Really delicious, hot or as a salad potato. We have a great range of potatoes in Scotland. Shapes, colours, flavours. So lots for you to choose from. So don't hold back with the potatoes in Scotland either. So I've just brought a few things just to show you here. And another thing that's really underestimated in this country is the roots. We have got great root vegetables, parsnips, where you can mash them, you can make them roasted with honey, you can use them for a stir fry, they're delicious. So these ones here are beetroot. We've got some lovely beetroot here. And I just wanted to draw your attention to how easy it is, because we buy beetroot in a jar in vinegar all the time. But in fact, if you just buy them fresh, and they're so inexpensive, boil them, whoops, boil them whole like this. And as you've just noticed, it just peels away. It is so easy. Absolutely, it just falls apart. But you have to remember to leave that top on while it's cooking, because otherwise all the lovely colour leaches out. And these are ones I've peeled already, but you can see how easy it is to peel. And once they're cooked, they are lovely, sautéed with a little bit of butter, or again, honey roasted. They make a terrific colour in a vegetarian tart. Really beautiful. So, very underestimated. We love beetroot in our house. We're going to plate up the dolmas that are already here. A steamer is a good thing to have. If you don't have a steamer, you can pop them in the oven with tin foil over them and bake them, but they're quicker and I think more moist in a steamer, and this has been a very good buy. So out they come. If you don't trust the children, you can remove the sticks at this stage. There we are. And we like our dolmas with a little bit of pickled beetroot. Pickled works well with them. are, and it also gives you an amazing colour on the plate. I also like a little bit of chutney on ours. Running out of spoons here. A little bit of rhubarb and apple chutney, like so. And lastly, a little bit of natural yoghurt. We've got great dairy produce in Scotland. Yogurts, cheeses, milk, cream, and I think a little bit of thick yoghurt is just what this dish needs to finish it off. That's how we like to serve it, but you have your own ways of serving it. The great thing with any of these recipes is to do your own thing and enjoy. So what have we got so far? We have got our kale rolls, or dolmas, whatever you want to call them. We've got our little pesto swirls ready to nibble. And last but not least, for pudding, we've got our Swedish apple cake. So I hope you've given you some inspiration to think about shopping Scottish, supporting our producers, supporting our farmers, growing your own, and enjoy. It's not a trial, it's fun, it's a challenge. And you can see how much enjoyment you can have and really good food just supporting the Scottish produce. Thank you.